Alright, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, those buttons are real sensitive. You're on.
All right. Welcome to my talk. I'm Cody Florek. I work at Rapid7. I'm a manager on the enterprise consulting group. And I wanted to present to you on the upside down, basically going from network security to application security. Just to frame it up, this is not for pen testing. I'm not going to teach you like how to hack or anything like that. This is more operational security stuff. So really, this is going to be, if you're really in tune with the application world, some of this is going to be a review for you. For a lot of us, though, it was new at some point. So I really want people to have an understanding of, the application world, what tools exist there, and then how to be effective in this new world that we found ourselves in. Okay, so who are we? Well, and this is all themed on Stranger Things, so if you haven't seen it, then there's some spoilers, so deal with it. So who are we? We're, according to LinkedIn, we're these very professional people. We've got years of experience. We secure our networks all day long. But really, what I want to focus in on is the vulnerability management lens. So we're doing really good at managing our CVEs. Patch Tuesday is no problem for us. Our patch management program actually works. And if it doesn't, don't tell me. Just we'll give you that. So anyway, we're doing really well. And then somebody comes up to us and says, "All right, well, what about our web apps? Where are we standing with that?" Suddenly, we don't look so confident anymore. And so when we start looking at web applications, we're no longer dealing with this world of CVEs, we're dealing with CWEs. So this is a much more generic software issue, so like poor input validation or poor session handling. So more about how a program is developed, less than, this specific version of Java or Adobe has this specific bug. It's much broader. So if you go out to MITRE's website, the latest version of this, their reference material is 1,500 pages, and I can't remember the last time I've read a 1,500-page piece of reference material and tried to incorporate that into a security ops program of fairly nebulous stuff. I think, a lot of us don't necessarily know what to do initially with this, so what do we end up doing? Well, I found that there is a statistic out here. D-Zone did a survey, and they found that, a lot of people were going out there and they were doing penetration testing, which is common. They were doing security code review, 19%. The next highest one on this list, no formal testing. So I don't get the warm and fuzzy from that if I work at that company. Just like in Stranger Things, they have this big problem that they're trying to deal with, and they're not exactly sure how to, tackle this thing, so they just start throwing stuff at it. Well, I think before we, can understand the effectiveness of those things that we're trying to do, maybe we should start trying to think about what we're doing with an application in the first place. So with an application, a single application, we need to think about coverage. So all aspects of that application. If it's a web application, as opposed to like a phone application, we're talking about all the links, all the different business logic workflows. How often are we looking to test this? How long does it take us to go through those tests? What framework is this built on? Those are all important things to think about in terms of a single application. When we start thinking about scaling this out, I've worked with a variety of different companies, and some only have 1 or 2 applications. Others have hundreds. So, you know, how are we going to scale our solution for this? What's the development cycle? Culture, reporting structure, responsibilities, those are all things that we need to think about as we start building our security program for vulnerability management. So now that we kind of have that frame of reference of what we're going to do with these applications, let's take a look at some of the tools that we're using. So if we take a look at pen tests, I don't know that I really need to describe the value of a pen test to this group. I feel like everyone would have a pretty good understanding of the value you get out of that. The cons is that it can be costly, especially to continually test applications after release. It's time consuming. It's not built into your processes at all. There's potentially narrow focus. So, you know, depending on the pen tester and the, you know, the scope of the engagement and so on, you know, we start thinking about if somebody, you know, breaks into the front door and then just starts wreaking havoc inside, but they never actually went and tested the windows, the other doors on the building. So, you know, are we really getting true coverage of everything for that application? Next, let's take a look at code review. So code review, it's, you know, a positive thing to do. It's comprehensive, but the cons is it's impossible to scale. And as soon as, you know, we start reaching some competing priorities, that's going to fall to the wayside. You know, it's not a repeatable, maintainable process over time. And it takes time to train people on how to do it properly. So, okay, so we're not being effective. Okay, well, how do we be effective? Well, I think before we can even get to that question, maybe we need to understand this new world. What are the laws of physics in the upside down? So we need to understand the software development lifecycle. Basically, how do we take code from an idea in our head to an application in somebody's hands or their, you know, on their computer? You know, I think a lot of us that have been, you know, in security or even, you know, studied for like CISSP or something like that, they talk about different development methods, and waterfall is something we think about a lot, where you make this really big product and then ship it. Like, I don't know, video games are a pretty good example of that. You're not going to just have like a small little, you know, guy and then a new town. You're gonna ship an entire game so you can play the whole thing, right? Well, a lot of companies are not doing this waterfall method. They're using something called agile development. And that's more about getting out minimum viable product. So if I, you know, build an app, you're going to see, you know, value out of that application sooner rather than later. Get in, you know, people using it, and then once they are using it, then you can expand it and start building out more feature sets. You need a smaller development group for that. It's a lot more cost effective, and it's all about this rapid release. So many companies are doing that type of development model where build, ship, build, ship. Okay, so that's the general concept of, you know, software development. How does this actually translate into, you know, the tools and the process to this? So we start to, you know, encounter this term called pipeline. Pipeline is basically the chain of processes, procedures, and tools that make this code turn into something usable. So in this example, we've got, you know, somebody writes code, they ship it off to GitHub, they use some sort of automation program. I'm most familiar with Jenkins and Bamboo, but these automation programs will do like unit tests. If you've got some sort of security program, you can incorporate it there, but that's where your build happens. And then once that happens, then you'll ship it off to Docker. From Docker, then you'll ship it out to AWS to have that live application. So a pretty basic workflow. This might be different per company, but the general idea is there. Okay, so who are the people behind the scenes that are doing this? Who are our development groups? Well, our developers are constantly trying to, you know, implement new processes, or not new processes, but implement new pieces of code. So they're trying to, be effective. They're trying to be smart about it because they constantly have more work coming at them all the time. So, they're going to write code. They're going to commit the code. Once, they run their tests, based on that feedback, they're going to, make modifications and reship. These people have a background in application building. They do not have a background in security. Some of them might, but most of them don't. So if you go and show them, some traffic capture that you have of web traffic, that doesn't mean much to them, which is fair because I don't know how to build web applications, but I know how to do security stuff. So, we need to form that partnership with them. Another group that we should think about is the product owners. The product owners are the people that are going to make the decisions on what the next build is going to look like, what priorities we're going to have, for that next build. So I want to mention these people because you're going to start trying to form partnerships with these people. Don't, try to form some sort of ego about it and be a dick when working with these people, because you're really not going to get anywhere. So how do we, partner with these people? Well, when you start talking with them, your language is not going to be one for one, but you start those conversations. Definitely don't throw things over the fence at them, because we're trying to improve, their processes, their procedures, and the software in our company in general. So if we're doing that, we can do that without, creating red tape for them. We want to show interest in their world, in their processes, and prevent, slowing down their development. And we also want to find partnerships. So if we start trying to do security through authority, I've seen a lot of people fail there because they stop working security and they start fighting politics. And that's not really going to get you anywhere. So, we understand this world a little bit better now. So what are some of these solutions out there, answers that we can use? Well, there's different pieces of technology. We'll talk about that in a second. You can, augment your staff by managed services, so hiring out for this, or you can try to hire somebody that does application security for your company. Good luck with that, because application security people are in high demand right now, and there's not a lot of them. You can keep doing pen tests. We've talked about that already, but we're well past the point of ignoring the issue. So in terms of technology, we've got a laundry list here, and I made this really wordy so that way you could use it as a reference. I'm not going to read through the entire thing, but just hit the highlights here. A SAS tool is looking at static code. So write code, scan the code, it's looking for errors. A DAST is looking for issues during runtime. So this is where we're doing cross-site scripting, tests, SQL injection, that sort of thing. IaaS tools are basically trying to take a mixture of the benefits of both of those and merge them together. A RASP is an agent-based tool. Think of a HIPS tool. So an agent that's looking for malicious web traffic. And then we also have our WAF, which is our last line of defense. They're not the best thing out there, but it's better than nothing, I guess. But those are going to look for, cross-site scripting, SQL injection, that low-hanging fruit. So now the real question is, okay, now I know all these things. What do I do with this? And I think that's where a lot of us kind of struggle. But, this is where we can actually utilize our strengths as security people and our background. By starting to build a defense in depth with this. We want to focus on our security being built into the process. We want to automate as much as we can, remove ourselves from as much as we can, because you will become a bottleneck at some point. You want multiple tools at multiple layers. And we want to start thinking about security training and building a security culture within the organization that we're in. So when we start looking at that pipeline, we need to start analyzing what we're doing. So what are we doing today? What is your company doing? Are they, doing agile development? Just to start out with, do they have any processes, procedures that you should know about? What tools are they using? That's really important because it's going to kind of dictate what other tools you buy to help secure your stuff. Are they using any reports? What are they doing with that? Are they taking any actions on that? Have they written any policies? I think a lot of people don't ever think about policies and procedures in their organization. Policies help build that security culture. So if they've written something, you should probably know about that and then build into it. If you're going to scan for CWEs, you should do it early in the build process. It's cheaper that way. If you go out to production and start scanning, you might blow up your web app, which I've seen people drop their databases from doing that in a production mode. Or, it just gets expensive to fix that late into the build process. But anyway, once we get to the Docker area, that's when we can really start focusing in on the things that we already know, that network scanning, CVE scans, policy adherence, that sort of stuff. And then, once it's in production, we can go back to doing the pen test stuff as well, and have those incorporated in. So multiple tools at multiple layers, SaaS tools, get that in early in the process along with DAST or the IAST or, there's a lot of similar acronyms here, but right when you're in that automation program piece, that's when a lot of those tools should be run to get you as much, knowledge about the vulnerabilities your company has created before they hit, production. Once you go into the Docker area, continue doing what you're doing in terms of network scanning, but I think a lot of people forget about things in early stages before they go live. When they do network scanning, they only scan production. Let's think about trying to do this earlier in the process and make sure that it's fixed early on so we're never hitting this in a production mode, just for network-based vulnerabilities on that. And then again, once you hit production, do your pen test, set up your rules for your WAFs and your RAFs. Building that security culture, you may not know how to train developers how to write more secure code, but you know what the goal is, right? So you want to partner with somebody in the development group to find out what your company needs, or what are they doing today? Maybe they're doing it. You don't even know. I find that happens a lot. People just have zero clue of what's happening in the development world in their own company. So really, again, find those partnerships, help build that security training program internally, and then once you get into some of the tool sets, try to reduce friction, show a lot of value because you're making their software better, and you're not injecting a ton of extra effort and red tape into that process. And then lastly, let's talk about the policies and procedures. So early on, when people are coding, what are their, security efforts? Are there any requirements that we need to meet before we, ship off to GitHub? Once things are in that automation piece, if there is a vulnerability, define what is okay, what is not okay, what the service level agreement is on that work that's going to be accomplished. Similarly, we should do that once we hit the network layer as well. That's probably pretty easy because you should be doing that today. So just, transition that into this. And then lastly, when we go to production layer, define what is allowed to hit that layer and what isn't. And if something is found, what's your escalation process there? Are you actually ever going to hit a point where you say, I need to take down my own application? All of that should be defined in your policies and procedures. So through all of this, hopefully this will help you, be a lot less like Deb and be a lot more effective in managing application security for your organization. Thanks.